No one realized the forest had begun to breathe differently. Shadows stretched longer than they should, twisting over roots and rocks as if alive. The familiar scent of moss and pine hung heavier, tinged with something unnameable, something that hinted at secrets best left unseen. Beneath the earth, where sunlight never reached, the labyrinth stirred. Stone corridors slid silently past one another, shifting with a deliberate patience, opening doors that had never existed, each one faintly humming, almost whispering. The air itself seemed to vibrate, waiting, watching, testing. High above, in a quiet room where dreams first touch the mind, a boy's slumber stirred. Tonight, he would see doors no one was meant to see. Doors that promised worlds that could bend reality and perhaps never let him return. The dream came back before dawn, sharper than before. The boy stood in a place that felt neither awake nor asleep, where the air hummed softly, like a distant wire under tension. Before him rose a wall of stone, but it would not stay still. Blocks slid sideways as if guided by unseen hands, passages opening and closing with quiet certainty. Doors appeared in the wall, one after another, each different, each breathing faintly, as though aware of him. He took a step closer, and the ground shifted beneath his feet. The doors pulsed brighter, reacting to his movement. He felt it then, a certainty that did not belong to the dream, that these doors were not showing themselves to everyone. They were waiting for him. As he raised his hand, a whisper moved through the space, low and deliberate, brushing against his thoughts rather than his ears. Choose carefully. He woke suddenly, his heart pounding, his breath shallow. For a moment he lay still, staring at the ceiling as the last trace of the whisper faded. The room was familiar. Plain walls, soft morning light, the distant sounds of the village beginning its day, but something had followed him out of the dream. A faint unease lingered, like the echo of footsteps after someone had passed. When he sat up, he noticed his hands were trembling. Outside, the world behaved as if nothing were wrong. The sky was pale and calm, the forest beyond the village quiet and ordinary. Yet, as he dressed, the image of the shifting wall returned with unsettling clarity. He could still see the way the stone had moved, purposeful and alive. He could still feel the certainty pressing against his chest, that the dream had not been a dream at all, but an invitation. He had heard whispers of the labyrinth for as long as he could remember. Stories so strange they seemed like dreams. Tonight, the whispers led him here. With quiet determination, he stepped lightly, aware that the ordinary world would never see what he was about to find. By the first light of dawn, he stood at the forest's edge, where shadows twisted unnaturally and the air hummed with anticipation. One hesitant step forward, and the world he had known began to fall away. The labyrinth was alive, its stone corridors sliding into impossible spirals, doors shimmering into existence, each humming with secrets and promises. Somewhere deep inside, worlds no one had imagined waited for him. The forest did not resist him when he entered. That unsettled him most. The trees stood slightly farther apart than he remembered, their trunks rising straight and silent, their leaves barely stirring despite the breeze he could feel against his skin. The familiar dirt path stretched ahead, yet something about it felt wrong, as though it had been copied imperfectly from memory. Each step carried him deeper, and with every step the sounds of the village faded until even his own breathing seemed too loud. He walked longer than he should have needed to. The forest bent subtly around him, the path curving where it once ran straight, narrowing and widening without pattern. Once, he was certain he passed the same twisted tree twice, though he never turned back. When he paused, a strange pressure settled in the air, urging him forward. Not forcefully, but patiently, as if waiting were itself a mistake. Then the forest ended. Not gradually, but all at once. The trees parted to reveal a clearing where no clearing had ever been. Stone rose from the ground in smooth, interlocking walls, gray and ancient, yet untouched by moss or time. The structure did not feel built, it felt assembled, as if the earth had decided very recently to rearrange itself. Paths branched outward in impossible angles, some descending sharply, others folding inward upon themselves. The air above the stone shimmered faintly, like heat rising from sun-warmed ground, though the clearing lay in shadow. The boy stood at the threshold, heart hammering, every instinct warning him to turn back. Yet beneath the fear was something else. Recognition. This was the place from his dream. Not an echo, not a symbol. The same silent intention hung over it, heavy and aware. As if acknowledging him, the walls shifted. Stone slid smoothly, soundlessly, and a single path aligned itself directly before him. The moment he stepped onto the stone, the forest vanished. There was no flash of light, no violent movement. The trees simply were no longer there. The air changed, cooler and thicker, humming faintly beneath his skin. The walls around him rose higher, curving inward, their surfaces etched with patterns that refused to stay still. When he turned to look back, the path behind him folded away, sealing itself with quiet finality. A soft sound broke the silence. Not footsteps, too light for that, but a careful, deliberate movement, like something circling just beyond his vision. The boy's breath caught as a shape emerged from the shifting shadows. Small, graceful, fox-like in form, yet its outline wavered as if uncertain. Its eyes reflected the stone walls, glowing silver and sharp with intelligence. "You came," the creature said, its voice calm, almost amused. The boy swallowed. "Where am I?" The creature tilted its head, studying him as though measuring something invisible. "Inside," it replied. Then, after a pause, "For now. And if I want to leave?" The creature smiled, but not unkindly. "Then you will need to choose well," it said. "The labyrinth does not keep those who learn." Somewhere deep within the stone, something shifted again. Slower this time, as if settling into place. New paths began to form ahead, each one subtly different, each one waiting. The labyrinth had accepted him. The creature led him through a corridor that slowly dissolved as they walked. Stone thinned into light, walls becoming translucent, then vanishing altogether. The air grew brighter, warmer, until the boy squinted against a glow that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the floor beneath his feet softened and then disappeared, he gasped and realized he was standing on nothing at all. Leaves drifted past his face. They hung suspended in the air, thousands of them, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Some were large as cloaks, others no bigger than his palm, all frozen in slow, graceful motion. Far above and far below, more leaves floated, forming the suggestion of a forest. Yet there were no trunks, no roots, no ground. Only drifting pathways of light connected one cluster to another, forming fragile bridges that shimmered uncertainly. "This is the first realm," the creature said quietly. "It listens closely." The boy took a cautious step forward. The path beneath his foot solidified just long enough to support his weight, then dimmed behind him. When he looked back, the bridge he had crossed dissolved into a scatter of glowing dust. Panic flared in his chest. "Don't stop," the creature warned. "Stillness is a kind of choice." Ahead, the path forked, not into left and right, but into height and depth. One route rose gently, bathed in warm light. The other dipped into a shadowed stretch where the glow of the leaves grew faint and uncertain. Instinct pulled him upward, toward what felt safer. He hesitated. The moment his hesitation deepened into fear, the path beneath him trembled. The glowing leaves shuddered, their light flickering erratically. The air thickened, heavy with expectation. "This realm is not about safety," the creature said. "It is about movement." Heart racing, the boy stepped forward, downward into the dimmer path. The glow steadied at once. The bridge firmed beneath his feet, growing brighter with each step he took. The fear did not vanish, but it loosened its grip, replaced by something quieter and stronger. Understanding. He moved carefully, steadily, resisting the urge to rush. When doubt crept in, the light dimmed. When he continued despite it, the world responded, opening before him like a breath released. At the far end of the floating forest, a doorway formed from interwoven light, pulsing softly. As he stepped through, the creature glanced back at the dissolving realm. "Courage," it said, almost to itself, "is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear decide." The door closed behind them, and the glow of the floating leaves faded into darkness. Somewhere deeper in the labyrinth, the stone shifted again. Slower now, more deliberate. The test had begun. The door opened downward. Light spilled beneath their feet, warm and blinding, and the boy felt himself descending without falling, as though the world itself were gently lowering him into place. When his vision cleared, he stood at the edge of a vast river. It flowed silently from horizon to horizon, not with water, but with pure, radiant light. Soft gold threaded with silver, moving in slow, deliberate currents. The air above it shimmered, heavy with warmth and quiet power. "There is no swimming here," the creature said, its voice more subdued than before, "and no crossing without permission." Across the majestic river, he could see the faint outline of another door, half-formed and distant, its edges wavering like a reflection. Between him and the door stretched the majestic river, vast and uninterrupted. As he watched, lines of light rose from the river's surface, shaping themselves into thin, arching bridges. Delicate, incomplete, and trembling. Words appeared above the first bridge, written in light that burned gently against his eyes. "What do you regret most?" The boy's breath caught. He had not expected the question to feel so heavy. He thought of moments he wished he could erase. Things left unsaid, choices made too quickly, times he had turned away when he should have stayed. The bridge pulsed, waiting. He answered quickly, choosing a regret that felt distant, safer. The moment the words left him, the light beneath his feet flickered. A sharp crack split the air. The bridge shattered into fragments of radiance that dissolved into the river below. Heat rushed upward, forcing him back. His heart hammered as the river surged, brighter now, restless. The creature's eyes narrowed. "It remembers," it said, "and it knows when you lie." Another bridge rose slowly, steadier than the first. New words formed above it. "Who are you when no one is watching?" This time, the boy hesitated longer. The silence pressed in around him, heavy and expectant. He swallowed, then spoke truthfully. Not loudly, not proudly, but honestly. The light beneath his feet warmed and solidified, the bridge brightening as it extended forward, span by careful span. He stepped onto it. The river flowed beneath him, and as he crossed, images stirred within the light. Memories reflected back at him. Moments of fear, kindness, selfishness, bravery. None lingered long enough to accuse him, but all were seen. The warmth grew gentler as he moved, the current smoothing into a steady glow. When he reached the far side, the door solidified fully, its light calming to a soft pulse. The creature joined him, its expression unreadable. "You crossed," it said. "Most don't." The boy turned back. The river already looked different, quieter, almost satisfied. He felt lighter, though the weight of what he had admitted still rested within him. As the door opened, the creature added softly, "The deeper you go, the less you can hide. The labyrinth has little patience for masks." Beyond the threshold, something sharp and reflective caught the light. The next realm was waiting. The doorway opened into brilliance. The boy stepped forward and found himself standing at the edge of a vast city carved entirely from crystal. Towers rose like frozen flames, their faceted surfaces catching and bending the light into endless colors. Streets of polished glass stretched outward in precise lines, reflecting the sky above, which was neither day nor night but a luminous haze that shifted with every movement. As he took another step, he froze. The city reflected him. Not once, but hundreds of times. Every surface, walls, ground, spires, held an image of the boy, each reflection slightly different. Some stood taller. Some smiled with confidence he did not feel. Others looked colder, sharper, their eyes filled with certainty instead of doubt. The reflections watched him as intently as he watched them. "They are possibilities," the creature said quietly. "Not lies, not truths, just paths." The streets were not empty. Figures moved through the crystal avenues, graceful, composed, their forms clear and flawless, as if sculpted from the same material as the city itself. When they spoke, their voices chimed softly, pleasant and reassuring. "You look tired," one said kindly. "You don't need to struggle anymore." Another smiled at him from a mirrored wall. "Stay here, become what you were meant to be." They gestured, and the reflection shifted. He saw himself powerful, admired, unafraid. In one vision, he stood above the labyrinth, understanding it completely, no longer subject to its tests. The idea sent a dangerous warmth through his chest. "What would I have to give?" he asked. The figures exchanged knowing glances. "Nothing you'll miss," one replied gently. The creature stiffened. "That is never true," it warned. The boy's gaze lingered on a reflection he liked, a version of himself calm and unburdened, free of uncertainty. As he reached toward it, the crystal beneath his feet tightened, locking him in place. The city brightened, responding eagerly. Suddenly, he understood. The city did not trap bodies, it trapped desire. He pulled his hand back. The warmth vanished at once, replaced by a sharp, aching clarity. One by one, he shook his head at the reflections, even the ones that felt comforting, even the ones that promised relief. "I don't know who I'll become," he said quietly, "but I won't choose that for convenience." The crystals screamed. Cracks raced through the streets and walls, splintering reflections into shards of light. The figures recoiled, their perfect forms fracturing as the city trembled. The ground beneath the boy released him, and a narrow path formed behind him. Dull, unremarkable, real. He ran. As he crossed the threshold, the city collapsed inward, folding upon itself until nothing remained but silence and darkness. The creature followed, its expression solemn. "That one keeps many," it said. "You walked away." The boy said nothing. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with the effort of refusal. Ahead, the labyrinth narrowed. The walls pulsed faintly now, like a heartbeat heard through stone. They were running out of places to hide. The path narrowed into a corridor of shifting stone, walls sliding silently as though inhaling and exhaling with a mind of its own. The boy felt it first as a vibration beneath his feet. subtle like the faint pulse of a heartbeat. Then the walls moved faster, leaning inward, folding around him. The air thickened with anticipation. It was no longer just a passage. It was alive, watching, and waiting. "You feel it," the creature said softly, its voice almost swallowed by the murmuring stone. "The labyrinth listens to everything. Not your footsteps, not your words, your hesitation, your fear, your choices. It remembers." The boy swallowed, his throat tight. Every instinct screamed to run, but his legs moved carefully, almost reverently, along the narrow floor. The walls rippled, creating passages where there were none moments before, and closing them behind him with a whisper. With every turn, the corridor seemed to stretch, elongating in impossible ways, folding space upon itself. He glimpsed doors appearing, vanishing, only to reappear somewhere else. A faint light glimmered ahead. He hurried toward it, but as he approached, the walls leaned closer, the corridor tightening. Shapes began to flicker in the shadows, fleeting images of realms he had already crossed, twisted versions of the floating forest, the river of light, the crystal city, each distorted, threatening, judging. He recognized them instantly. Trials not yet finished, lessons unlearned, regrets unspoken. "You cannot run from yourself," the creature murmured. Its eyes, bright as silver, reflected the corridors folding around them. "Every choice leaves a trace, and some traces demand acknowledgement." The boy's pulse raced. The stone wall shivered, and a low hum filled the corridor, vibrating through his chest, through his bones. He remembered the whispers of the first door. "Choose carefully." This was the labyrinth speaking, not with words, but with intention. Every step forward, every pause, every fear fed it, shaped it, guided it. He had an impulse to turn back, but something deeper stirred within him. Courage, he realized, was not just crossing a bridge or refusing a reflection. It was this, the willingness to step forward, even when the walls themselves seemed alive with judgment. And so, he walked. With each careful step, the walls leaned back, almost imperceptibly, allowing passage. Light grew slightly brighter, but the corridor pulsed still, impatient, aware, testing him. He focused on the rhythm of his own heartbeat, matching it to the labyrinth's, learning its silence, feeling its hunger and patience as one. Finally, the corridor opened. He stepped into a chamber vast beyond imagining. Its floor was black, polished to a mirror sheen. From the ceiling hung thousands of tiny, flickering lights, like stars suspended in the dark. And at the far end, a door, tall, arched, etched with symbols that shifted constantly, waited. It pulsed with an inviting rhythm, beckoning him closer, yet promising nothing. The labyrinth had laid its next test. The chamber was silent. No walls, no floor, no ceiling, only blackness, smooth and complete, stretching in all directions. The boy's footsteps made no sound. The air was still, heavy, and somehow aware. He could feel it pressing gently against his skin, probing his thoughts, waiting for his next move. The creature that had guided him so far hovered nearby, its shape flickering between fox and dragon, but even it seemed hesitant, as though the labyrinth itself had grown impatient and curious. "This is the end?" the boy whispered, though the word felt inadequate. The creature's silver eyes reflected nothing. "It is not an end," it said. "It is a choice, and a question. Who will you become?" He looked around. There was nothing to grasp, no path to follow, only an infinite darkness that seemed to stretch both outward and inward, folding upon itself. The walls, he remembered, the bridges, the city, they were gone. All that remained was the weight of possibility. A faint pulse began beneath his feet. It grew stronger, synchronized with his heartbeat. The darkness began to shimmer faintly, revealing not paths but visions. He saw himself in countless ways, strong, safe, admired, unafraid. He saw himself feared, alone, triumphant, broken. Some were versions he longed to be, others he feared becoming. He understood instantly. The labyrinth offered him any reality he wanted, if only he chose it. The boy swallowed. The temptation was sharp, radiant, almost unbearable. He could take any version of himself, escape uncertainty, and never face the risk of failure again. The light shimmered brighter as he hesitated, inviting him, pressing him toward ease. The creature's voice cut softly through the shimmer. Nothing free here is worth having, not even peace. He thought of home, of ordinary days, of sun-warmed fields and nights filled with dreams he could share. He realized the labyrinth was not offering him power, not offering him escape. It was offering him detachment, a version of himself untouched by fear, regret, or struggle. One step and he would leave the world behind, losing the lessons he had earned. I choose to leave," he whispered. Not the easy choice, not the safe one, but the one that carried everything he had learned. The darkness rippled. The visions shattered into shards of light. The pulse beneath his feet softened to a calm rhythm, welcoming but measured. A doorway formed, not flashy, not glowing, just solid and quiet. The labyrinth had accepted him, and at last it let him go. The creature hovered beside him one last time. "The choice makes the traveler," it said softly. "Remember this, the labyrinth is never cruel, only truthful." With a deep breath, the boy stepped through. When he stepped through the doorway, the forest greeted him exactly as it had been before. Trees in their familiar places, the narrow path winding lazily between them, the wind whispering softly through the leaves. For a moment, he wondered if he had imagined it all, if the labyrinth had been nothing more than a dream pressed against the edges of sleep. But he felt it in his bones, the memory of shifting stone, floating forests, rivers of light, and the city of crystal. He felt the weight of every choice he had made, every fear he had faced, every truth he had admitted. The labyrinth had not changed the world, but it had changed him. He walked slowly, deliberately, savoring the ordinary. Each blade of grass, each chirping bird, each breath of wind felt like a revelation. The creature appeared beside him once more, fading in the light of morning. Its silver eyes glimmered with quiet approval. "The doors will always exist," it said, voice like a soft echo, "for those who need them or those brave enough. But remember this, the world you leave is shaped by the world you carry inside you." The boy nodded, understanding fully for the first time. Courage was not about defeating monsters, nor was wisdom simply about learning secrets. It was about moving forward when the path was uncertain, seeing clearly when the world tried to distract him, and carrying every lesson into the life he would live beyond the labyrinth. He stepped onto the familiar dirt path, feeling lighter and yet stronger, ordinary yet extraordinary. The sun warmed his face, and the wind danced across the trees, whispering secrets only he could hear. He turned once, expecting to see the shifting walls of the labyrinth, but there was nothing. Only the forest. Only the day. Yet he knew. Somewhere, beyond sight and sound, doors waited. Doors that could change worlds. Doors that could test the heart. And one day, perhaps, he might return. But for now, he smiled, because even in ordinary life, he had learned to see the extraordinary. Some labyrinths are not meant to trap you. They are meant to change you and to let you go quietly, carrying their truths with you. And as he walked into the forest's light, he felt the pulse of possibility lingering beneath every step. A subtle reminder that wonder never truly leaves those who have learned to notice it. The labyrinth had not disappeared. It had merely become invisible to anyone who did not yet know how to look. The boy returned to the ordinary world without fanfare. The forest stood as it always had, silent and still, its paths once again familiar. To anyone watching, nothing had changed. Yet he knew better. Something of the labyrinth lingered within him. An awareness, a quiet depth behind his eyes. He noticed patterns where others saw chaos, doors where others saw walls. The world felt larger now, layered with unseen possibilities. And sometimes, when the wind moved just right through the trees, he could almost hear it again. The distant shifting of stone, the whisper of paths rearranging themselves. The labyrinth had not vanished. It had simply withdrawn, patient as ever, waiting for the moment it might be needed again. Some journeys end when the traveler returns home. Others continue in silence, reshaping how the world is seen and understood. The labyrinth was never meant to be conquered or solved. It existed to awaken something forgotten. Perhaps it still does. For those who listen closely, who notice when shadows linger too long or paths seem to bend ever so slightly, the doors may still be there. Not for everyone. Only for those willing to step beyond the ordinary and accept what waits on the other side.